Marc Garneau. Throughout his long and distinguished career as an astronaut and executive, he has inspired countless young Canadians, contributed to the growth and development of the Canadian Space Agency, and brought honor and recognition to Canada. Marc Garneau was born on February 23, 1949, in Quebec City. He was the second of 4 brothers. His early education began in Germany, where his father served with the Canadian Forces. In his teenage years, he was a student in London, England. He graduated from high school and Collège Militaire Royal in Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, Quebec, with first-class honors. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in Engineering Physics from the Royal Military College of Kingston, Ontario, again graduating with honors in 1970. And a doctorate in electrical engineering from the Imperial College of Science and Technology, London, England, in 1973. Garneau began his career as a naval officer in 1973 and was based in Halifax, serving as an engineer and instructor. He was promoted to the rank of commander in 1982 while attending Staff College. He was transferred to Ottawa in 1983 and became design authority for naval communications and electronic warfare equipment and systems. Marc Garneau answered an advertisement from the National Research Council in 1983 for Canadians to apply to become astronauts to fly in future space missions. Out of nearly 4,300 applications, he was one of 6 chosen to become the first group of Canadian astronauts and was selected as number 1 to go.
Cheers, thank you.
Garneau began rigorous training at the Johnson Space Center in Houston after being seconded from the Navy to the new Canadian astronaut program. His first flight, STS-41G, was on the Shuttle Challenger from October 5th to the 13th, 1984. As payload specialist, Marc Garneau was the first Canadian to fly on a NASA mission to space. Garneau became Deputy Director of the Canadian Astronaut Program in 1989, providing technical and program support for future Canadian missions. Earlier that year, he had ended his naval career with the rank of captain after 23 years of service. Garneau learned to fly with his fellow astronauts near Ottawa at the Rockcliffe Flying Club. At the Johnson Space Center in Houston in 1992, he participated in the year-long Mission Specialist training course. He worked on technical issues for the Astronaut Robotics Integration Team, becoming an expert in operating the Canadarm. He also became the first non-American ever to work in the key role of spacecraft communicator, CAPCON, in mission control during more than a dozen shuttle flights.
Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour to develop the practical and the beneficial aspects of space.
Marc Garneau flew on 2 further flights. He was mission specialist on Space Shuttle Endeavour, flight STS-77, from May 19th to the 29th, 1996. This flight focused primarily on microgravity research, which investigates the effects of weightlessness and motion sickness. During this mission, the astronauts on board also launched the Spartan spacecraft and tested their ability to retrieve it using the Canadarm. For his third spaceflight, STS-97, Garneau was mission specialist and flight engineer on the Endeavour from November 30th to December 11th, 2000. The Endeavour brought up truss structure P6, weighing 17 tons, to the International Space Station. P6 included the first large solar panels to be deployed on the station. He used the Canadarm to maneuver the gigantic P-6 truss segment out of the cargo bay and into place, manipulating the robotic arm from inside the spacecraft, while two of his crewmates completed operations from the outside. The station derives its power from the conversion of solar energy into electrical power, and these new panels greatly increased the power supply to the ISS. Garneau logged about 678 hours in space during his 3 missions. Even more importantly, and often working behind the scenes, he used his engineering expertise, his passion, and his quiet grace to bring success to Canada's space program and create opportunities for Canadian astronauts who followed in his footsteps. It was Marc Garneau who made the space program real for millions of Canadians. Since his first space mission, Dr. Garneau has made thousands of presentations and hundreds of media appearances across Canada and abroad as Canada's ambassador for space exploration. He is an articulate, passionate promoter of science and the space program, and strongly believes that Canada needs to be a part of the new frontier. Passionate about planetary exploration and a visionary in formulating a role for the Canadian scientific community, Garneau has fostered new developments in Canadian technologies and has spoken out in support of another important role for Canada, this time in Moon and Mars exploration. His foresight and convincing leadership are focused on ensuring that Canadian scientists remain at the leading edge of research on our solar system and beyond. And like others who have viewed beautiful Earth from space, he also has strong feelings about protecting its fragile environment. Marc Garneau was appointed Executive Vice President of the Canadian Space Agency in February of 2001, and later that year became its president, a position he held until 2005. He drafted the Canadian Space Strategy, the document that defined the mandate and the long-term vision of the Canadian space program. As president of the CSA, he was responsible for the smooth deployment of Canada's robotic contribution to the International Space Station, the Mobile Servicing System, MSS. This also included training facilities at the Canadian Space Agency itself to train all astronauts and cosmonauts using the MSS, as well as a CSA control center responsible for supporting Houston during MSS operations on the station. Without this unique and indispensable Canadian system, now 7 successful years in operation, the highly complex International Space Station simply could not have been built. His stewardship of this dimension of the ISS program was a major element of Canada's role in an exclusive group of nations. Marc Garneau has received many honors and awards. He has received honorary doctorate degrees from universities across Canada, and was inducted into the Quebec Air and Space Hall of Fame in 2001. Garneau is an honorary fellow of the Canadian Aeronautics and Space Institute and was named a member of the International Academy of Astronauts in 2002. Canada Post honored Garneau in 2003, along with all other Canadian astronauts who have flown on NASA space shuttles. Marc Garneau received the Order of Canada from Governor-General Jean Sauvé in 1984. In August 2003, he was promoted to the rank Companion of the Order of Canada in a ceremony presided over by Governor-General Adrian Clarkson. That same year, he was installed as the 9th Chancellor of Carleton University in Ottawa, a position he currently holds. Marc Garneau's work with students is recognized. 2 high schools have been named after him. He is an honorary captain of the Royal Canadian Navy, which promotes Sea Cadets, and 599 Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron is named in his honor. After many successful years with the Canadian Space Agency, Garneau left the organization in 2005. He is a highly sought-after public speaker, and at the present time, his interests lie in the political arena. He lives in Montreal with his wife Pamela and 2 sons, Adrian and George. He also enjoys spending time with his mother, daughter Simone, son Yves, and grandson Elliot. Marc Garneau was inducted as a member of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame at ceremonies held in Toronto on May 28, 2008.